If people are joining, hi Dave, can you mute your microphones? I can't do a multi-mute, so.
Oh yeah, just done it. I thought I was automatically muted. Done it now.
Okay, well I make it past, so what I'll do is I'll introduce Jack Borman, who is kindly stepped in for Brian, who for operational reasons had to go away for work. You know what it's like. So Jack stepped in and will do the talk on surveying the Broads. Jack has actually recently surveyed the Broads, so it's he's a good person to talk about it. So I will stop presenting my screen and Jack will present his.
Thank you, Kirsty. Hopefully, here we go. As Kirsty pointed out, Brian has gone away to Wick to carry out dimensional control survey. So I am here instead. So thank you very much for inviting us along this evening to present on this. Hopefully, it will be of some interest to you guys over in the east, being a pretty local thing and maybe something a little bit different. So we'll just get going. I'm going to introduce you to GEOSIGHT, who we are. We're fairly young and out of area to you, so you may not be aware of us. So I'll introduce you to us and the management team. We'll then move on to talk a little bit about the Norfolk Broads and what they wanted from their survey. We'll talk about our little survey boat Bella and what we use to conduct the shallow water surveys, the challenges associated with the Broads, and then finally, if you have any questions about anything we touch on, please feel free. And I promise, if I don't know the answer off the top of my head, I will come back to you either via your own contact details or via Kirsty with an answer. So let's push on. GEOSIGHT was established in 2016 and we are a RICS regulated land and hydrographic survey company. We have 4 specialisms, topographic and hydrographic surveys, and within that, boundary surveys are a big thing for us. We offer services ranging from just producing a very basic plan right up to expert witness at Crown Court level. Engineering surveys we deal with quite a lot, especially dimensional control for offshore vessels, which some of you in the room may have come across as through doing that. As I mentioned, we own and operate our own little survey boat Bella, and with that we look to provide a full sort of near shore to land survey solution. So our management team, the company was just started by Brian and Kirsten. Brian being the principal surveyor. I'm sure you will have crossed paths with Brian in the past, as he was the chief surveyor for Fugger Emu. Qualified up to the eyeballs in absolutely everything. Kirsten, his wife, is our HSE officer and director. Her trade, she's a physiotherapist by trade, but has won awards for restructuring sections of the NHS. So he's a very, very competent manager. She is assisted by Andrew Coombs, who's our quality manager, and is currently working to us gaining ISO 9001 accreditation, which is a tricky old minefield to navigate through. Matt Deacon, who I know is in the room and maybe a little bit embarrassed to know that I rate him as one of the best surveyors I've ever worked with. And then myself, from the profile, I started life as a hydrographic surveyor in the Royal Navy, left there, came into a stint in the oil and gas industry before coming across to work in the land survey things, and then fit quite neatly into the GeoSight's multi-rolled approach, and so here I am as of February, and thoroughly enjoying it. So the Norfolk Broads themselves, I didn't realise, I'm sure some of you do, but they are not natural. They are the result of peat digging, essentially, for people looking for fuel for their homes in the 12th century. But the rising water levels made that too challenging. And by the 14th century, they were completely abandoned. And over the time, the water filled all the holes and created what we have today, which is so this 300 kilometre square area with 63 broads, which I thought was quite a lot, but only 13 are navigable, which is probably why I don't know the other 50 or so. They're only about 4 metres deep. And connected Norwich to the sea, which was vastly important many years ago. And the Broads Authority was established in 1989 to give us what we have today. So that said, the Broads Authority put out to tender for a rolling hydrographic survey contract, primarily to focus on the dredging operations, but there was an element of hydrology to that, and they wanted to know where the water was coming from and sediment dumps and whatnot. So the previous surveys had been carried out with single beam, which it was accurate, but there are better ways of doing it. So yeah, we won the contract, and it is 3 years with a 2-year option at the end. Last year we completed task order 1, which was 10 of their navigations through rivers, and then 5 post dredge surveys. And with task order 2 due to us in the coming days, which will see us back up there any time between December and March, which is a nice wide time frame to work to. So Bella, there's our little boat. She's MCA coded, and we have 2 commercially endorsed skippers, so we can take her pretty much anywhere within our coding regulations. She, as you can see, she is enclosed and is a shallow draft. She's a 0.6 meters draft, so absolutely ideal for surveying the Broads. Was formerly owned by the Finnish company VRT and has an 80 horsepower engine, which looks ridiculous on the Broads. As you'll see, the engine's, it's not a very good photo actually, but the engine's absolutely massive, but is ideal for us. We're nipping across from down where we are in Hampshire across to the Isle of Wight, navigating the Solent. So a very capable little boat, and which is accompanied by our Norbit IWBMS, specifically designed for shallow water bathymetry. The depth range is listed there as 0.2 to 275. We have been nowhere near 275 metres in the work we've done, and the 0.2 we have passed to the point where we have taken direct measurements with the Norbit on 2 occasions in the year that we've owned her, but clearly a robust piece of kit because she's still working very well. The primary benefit to the Norbit is the ease of use. We have an Aplanix integrated IMU within there, so there is no calculations to do in with regards to movement. It's all within the multi-beam head itself, and there is one straightforward Ethernet connection to a laptop, which runs interfaces through a GUI and straight into the acquisition software. So it's very, very easy to use and easy to set up. I'm sure you've seen many multi-beam screens like this, but this is it. Very straightforward and user-friendly piece of kit. Our acquisition and processing software is Beamworks. I don't know, I'm sure some of you have come across it before. Another extremely user-friendly piece of software. We have the acquisition and the processing data. There is also a fully automated patch test calculator, which saves a whole heap of time in that you run the lines for the patch test, select them, run it through their algorithms. They process the most likely patch test result and print, and you can have a full PDF report of the patch test that's ready to send to the client, and work can carry on straight away. Do some validation lines, but we've never had a problem with the auto patch system, and it works extremely well. Another thing that's extremely user friendly, very intuitive to use, and yeah, again, very pleased with it. And this is the sort of thing. This was that we can get from it. This was a wreck that we discovered that uncharted on the Broads. They had no knowledge of it. There are no dimensions on here, I'm afraid, but the dimensions are pretty similar to Bella. It's 6 meters long, 2 meters wide. It looks a little bit like there's also a cabin for people to operate in, but it's in a fairly relatively deep piece of water, just outside Alton Broad. And yeah, we were able to get this data away to them on the day that it was discovered. Obviously, there's not a huge amount of processing to be done, but using the Beamworks, we were able to fire something out to them that day, which they could then put into their navigational charts. So yeah, as I touched on at the beginning, the primary scope for the survey was for dredging, and you can see here around Hickling Broad, they've sort of gone. It's all their dredging's done with an excavator on a barge, and it's kind of attacked here, little bits and pieces. And then around Catfield Dyke, which is just up from Hickling Broad, a bit further north, they've just sort of stopped. The depth here in the yellow patch was about 0.4 meters. In the red, we're looking at 0.2 to 0.1, so very shallow. And hopefully the data that they're getting is able to provide them with some more targeted dredging works. This was quite interesting at Alton Broad. You can almost see the circles of the 360 excavator as she spun around on the barge, plucking out some older stuff going on here, and then the newer one where you can still see the bucket marks having hit. I don't know if I can zoom in here, if it works. No, it doesn't look like it does, but just along here, very small pockets of fish. So when we encountered fishermen, they were extremely keen to know where the very deep parts of the Broads were, just because they knew that's where the fish hung out, and we have the multi-beam data to validate that. Sedimentary build-up, you can see on the bends of the lakes it's beginning to creep forward, so that will help the Broads Authority with calculations of how much needs moving and whereabouts it needs to move from and where they can put it. So challenges that we faced, we use for the nearshore and the shallow water stuff, we use RTK SmartNet corrections, which are different to the PPP corrections that you get offshore, in that they rely on mobile data, and we weren't sure how they were going to work on the Broads, but it was actually maintained very good, for really good strength, and we were getting consistently well under sort of 20 mil, normally within 10 mil vertical error. And when it did drop out, there was one section of the Broads where we just couldn't get any, because the heavily canopy area, there was no data corrections coming through, but it posed no problem. It was a simple POSPAC exercise to get that processed, which worked out fine. Another challenge is trees below the waterline. You either get big roots that pop up from the trees, or trees that have fallen down entirely. Low-hanging branches that you can see, but anything below the waterline posed a hazard for us, because part of the remit was obviously to get as close into the banks as we could. And yeah, there were a lot of trees, a surprising number of trees actually growing out into the river. Weather, despite it being an enclosed vessel, Bella actually just kind of magnifies the external conditions. So the first week we were there, it was pretty cold outside, and it was like a fridge inside. Second week, it was very warm, and it was absolutely boiling inside Bella. So air conditioning that you might be used to offshore is not an option for us in Bella. So although very capable at surveying, not the nicest place to spend a great deal of time when the weather's not playing ball. The bridges on the Broads, by and large, were absolutely fine. But there are two. There's one at Beccles, which is extremely low, that we ended up having to kill the engine and just handball our way through, with two of us pushing down against the struts, the iron frame of the bridge, and trying to push the boat into the water to get under. And then I'm sure you all know Potter Heigham, where you've got the arched bridge. That was absolutely terrifying. To be honest, we waited to the lowest point of low water that we could, and only just then scraped through. And I'm afraid we did add to a couple of the gouge marks where the top frame of the boat was dragging through the stone. It wasn't, however, as bad as a chap who decided that he really needed to get back to return a boat, and came screaming up to the bridge before dropping the engine into neutral so the boat would drop into the water. Got his timing a bit wrong, and the boat bobbed up just in time for the windscreen to catch the edge of the bridge, and it exploded. I have heard a noise like it, but certainly I've not heard a noise like that on the river before. But we made it through. We were able to carry on. We had a few issues with fishermen who weren't happy to concede an ideal fishing spot for us to come by and do a pass. There was also this chap who sort of followed us around and caused us one or two issues, in that he just kept swimming around, getting a little bit close to the side of the boat to have a bit of a sniff, but was fine. And the final challenge we had was a road transportable vessel. It's important to have road transport. Now, on the way in to about 10:30 on a Sunday night, the wheel fell off our trailer and actually overtook the vessel. Fortunately, we were right outside the boatyard when it happened, and we were able to call out a recovery truck to bring us within range of the crane, who then lifted the trailer over the fence into the boatyard, and then took the boat and popped her in the water at Lowestoft. So that was very helpful, but it causes issues later on down the line, because part of our planning had been to launch and recover at various locations. So we ended up driving or navigating through the Broads right from Lowestoft, where we were, out to Loddon, Beccles, and then up as far as South Walsham and Hickling Broad, where we ended up 2 weeks later. So we drove pretty much the entirety of the Broads in that first task order, which was actually lovely, because it's just such a beautiful part of the world. We were very lucky to get paid to sit in a boat, where in fact pretty much everyone else has to pay to sit in a boat and do the work. But so all in all, it's a very enjoyable job, and we're due task order 2 in the next couple of days, as I say. And the whole company is kind of itching to get up and have a nice trip out on the Broads. That concludes the presentation. It was a short one, I'm afraid, in comparison to your last one with the MCA chat, but it's there's considerably less of the Broads than there is of the British territorial waters. So if you do have any questions, please feel free, and I will do my best to answer. And I say, if I don't know the answer, I will revert to you when I have an answer for you.
Okay, Jack. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's very interesting. I just have one question. Well, I'd like to see pictures of you going underneath the bridge. I think that'd be quite interesting if you've got any. And also, you're saying you're using the auto patch test for the IWBMS. What are your results against manual verification? Have you actually seen a comparison between the two? And
we did once, and there was we compared it once to the manual verification. There was very little difference. I don't know how, as a scientific exercise, just one comparison isn't particularly robust, but there it was pretty solid. And obviously the difference is you take out the human error, you run it through an algorithm, and it will give you the same, which should give you the same result each time. But and you take out that element of human error, which is it's just very beneficial. So yeah, and as for the pictures, I'm afraid we didn't take too many because we had other things on our mind at the time other than trying to stitch ourselves up with taking the pictures of the boat in compromising positions under the bridges. So I'm sorry, Kirsty.
oh, next time. So there's a question there from Phil Harris. Are the Broads Authority using your information to produce navigational charts?
I believe so. What they're doing with their deliverables, I'm not entirely sure. I know that wreck that pointed out a little while back, they have, well, they said they had added to their charts, and so yes, I'm sure they're updating. As to the timeframes of how often, I did check not long. I have stopped checking, but I was checking their notice to mariners, and at the time I stopped checking, there was no updates to their navigational chart. So I shall check again, Phil, and let you know.
Okay, there's another one coming from Ben, and it's going following on from Phil. Do you have to meet a certain order of accuracy?
There wasn't an order of accuracy specified. However, I believe it met special order, but I will have to check back against that to make sure they all did, because I wouldn't want to come in and say, yeah, we've absolutely done this. But there wasn't one specified. It was simply a deliverable to pop into their GIS system. Okay,
so is there bathy data for the whole of the Broads now then?
They give, so the task order has specific areas. They have specific areas thereafter, so it's defined by price, really. There's a costing framework, so they have to prioritise what they can do within that budget and what's most important to them. But if we left the multi-beam running, so every time we have driven over the Broads, and we have data for pretty much everywhere we've driven or we've navigated the boat.
Okay, and I think Ben's added to that question, going, also, what are your thoughts on the effect of soft sediments as are observed in the Broads, presumably on the bathymetry data?
What are my thoughts on them? As in, are they moving? What? Or
Ben, do you want to clarify your question?
Sorry, Ben.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking. Well, you've got the Norbit, the IM. Yes, it's quite high frequency. It's penetration. How well does it? How well does it cope with the very soft sediments and muddy type situation of the Broads? It's quite different to an offshore survey where we've got somewhat stronger type sediment boundaries.
Sure.
So have you seen much influence of that very soft definition at all, or?
There is. I don't know if I can. I have some data examples. Here we go. If I just try and find something and then take back control of it is. Sorry, everyone, this isn't the most interesting thing, I'm sure. Waiting for me to find some data examples of some good soft sediment. That's not so much. I don't know if actually I can zoom in on this one.
I don't think you're sharing anything at the moment.
No, that's not too helpful, is it? Hold on a sec. Let me try and bring something back. Where's Teams? Here we go. So I don't know if I don't suppose that's any good. Sorry, but I could have prepared a little bit better for that question, Ben. I should have appreciated.
That's right. At the moment, I can't actually see anything that you're trying to share, though.
Oh,
so I do apologise. Hear a lot of clicking. But,
I beg your pardon. That's entirely. What hide share? What's? Oh, what I can. Why am I not? Maybe.
Can you share the content?
Can you see this?
There you go. That's it.
That's better. Yeah.
There we go. I don't know if this is the one I had wanted to pick out. I don't know what this. It's shallow. So yeah, you can see some bits and pieces along there. I don't know if that gives you an idea of the sort of definition that we were getting.
Yeah, it's a little hard. It's just more of interest because I think, as you know, a large amount of us surveyors or hydrographers are used to somewhat harder sediments, and yeah. I know from being up and down the Broads and even just swimming and walking in the Broad, you know, some of them it's very soft and very, you know, easy to just penetrate through. So it'd be an interesting thing to see how the high frequency system that you've got would compare with a single beam to see the penetration.
Yeah.
Whether that sediment carry is of any use to the Broads Authority in terms of what they're, you know, what information they're trying to achieve from it.
Yes, I take your point on that entirely, Ben. Yeah. What am I? I'm still showing this, aren't I?
You are, yeah.
Oh, this is absolutely hopeless. Let's come back. There we go. I will stop presenting again. There we go.
Okay, there's a couple of other questions. I think there's John from CFAS is asking like about interesting to hear about the backscatter over soft sediments. Also, what frequency were you running the system at? Were you running at the same frequency all the time, or selecting different frequencies for different areas?
We kept it at the same frequency we could have we had issues with task order 1, and it was delayed and delayed and delayed, and ultimately we had to get it done and turned around within a couple of weeks. The area that we were in, so we didn't. It would have been much better to have sat and in each area adjusted the frequency, but we kept it at, I think, about 400 kilohertz throughout it, in order to just keep just to save time, essentially. So no, but I think this time when we go back, we will be filling with the frequencies just to take into account the different makeup of the bed in the different areas of the Broads.
Okay, and then Alison, also from CFAS, wants to know whether dredge operations, what are they for? Is it for clearance, for navigation, or prevention of siltation?
Good question. Can't answer. I know a lot of it's for navigation because of the areas we've been in. I think it's largely to for them to validation. They've got to the depths that they say they should have done. I think I don't know if the guys are contracted in or not, but it's largely for, they know how deep they should be going. I'm sure they know how deep they have gone, but the Broads Authority want it for the validation, and it is primarily through the navigation channels. I don't know if they've used the data for any of the silt makeup or migration of the silt or any of that kind of stuff, I'm afraid.
Okay, thanks very much. Does anybody else want to vocalize some questions or put some more in the chat? Choice is yours. I see Dave Mann is typing something.
I was going to ask, what resolution were the bathy grids? What cell size?
They were. We sent them 1 meter grids in the no 0.25 meter grid. Sorry, we gave them 1 and then 0.25 meter grids, and I'm pretty sure they just dispensed of the 1 meter grids almost immediately.
And I wondered what kind of coverage did you get as a multiple of the water depth? 5 times, something like that?
We got about four times the water depth, and then in some areas we obviously brought the beams in to give us less, but could concentrate more. Certainly in some of the shallow areas, because certainly where it got shallower, we brought the beams in an awful lot, just because they were firing off in all sorts of directions in the outer beam. So yeah, but by and large, we did manage to achieve 4 times water depth. Certainly around the Broads, where it was Alton Broad and Hickling Broad, where it was slightly deeper. It was very good.
Final question. Did you image a paddle at the bottom of South Walsham Broad? Can you give me the coordinates?
I popped it on eBay. I made a bit of a profit from that. Thank you.
A nice paddle, that one.
It was. Yeah. No, we didn't see anything like that. But we'll keep an eye out this time.
Okay, well, unless anybody's got anything else, thank you very much, Jack. That was a very interesting presentation.
Thank you.
That is the last presentation for the East Anglia region for 2020. We're holding a committee meeting in the next couple of weeks to see if we can do something in December, a little bit more social, online, perhaps a quiz. We have a good quiz master standing in the background awaiting to do a quiz for us if required. So if people are particularly interested in that, we might send out some sort of expressions of interest and see if anyone's interested in it and put that on. Else it will probably be into 2021, but we'll keep you all informed with regular updates of what we're doing. And I believe we're going to have an AGM at some point, so they're always good fun trying to raise more committee members. So unless anybody else wants to contribute anything, we can finish the meeting, and thank you all very much for attending. We've had 22 people online tonight, which I think is one the best attendances so far, so it's really appreciated, and it shows that it's worthwhile putting these on, so we'll probably continue to do so while we're in these times. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jack. That was really interesting.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Tom.
thank you, Jack. Thank you, Kirsty.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.